In the land of the Great Pyramids, there's a major animal cruelty issue that you can help stop. What you should know about the cruelty to horses and camels in Egypt. That's next on the PETA Podcast. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil, Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights, brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On today's episode, the campaign to stop cruelty to the horses and camels in Giza, the Egyptian city on the west bank of the Nile near Cairo. You go there to see the Great Pyramids, including the Great Sphinx, that vast sculpture of a man's head on a lion's body. If and when you go, don't take a horse cart and don't pay for a camel ride. You won't if you know how they're treated at the markets there. Jason Baker is PETA Vice President of International Operations. He's heading up PETA Asia's campaign to end the cruelty to the horses and camels by the businesses that cater to the tourist trade in Egypt. Our conversation on the PETA Podcast.
It's a place that we have been working in and campaigning on for 20 years now, so it's not new to us. But in the past, we had been looking at live export and vegetarian campaigns. But about, 4 years ago, we just sort of looked at the level of complaints we were getting from the pyramids. And we went to, I had been there myself, but I went in the main gate at the time. I didn't see the horses and the stuff from the sides and the background and I just didn't, I was like, well, I don't want to look at the camels, so I didn't pay attention. So we went in and just documented things that you wouldn't necessarily look at if you weren't looking for it. We documented first the horses, and we thought we were being savvy by renting a hotel right across from the pyramids and shooting in. But the reality was you can just go there and shoot right inside and openly. And if you know where to be, you catch horses collapsing far more regularly than one would expect. You see animals, horses being beaten mercilessly. It's hot. There's no water anywhere. There's no shade. They work from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. There's a road between the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx that they basically slide and trip on all day long. It's mind-boggling why they don't fix it, because we've pointed it out so many times. And then we have the camels. And for the most part at the pyramids, the camels sit and they walk around the pyramids. But what people don't see is where they come from, how they've lived, where they're going back to. So we went to the Barask camel market, which is open one day a week, about 35 miles north of the pyramids. And it's shocking. I don't know if it's to control the animals or what, but they are constantly beating them. So much so that bloody faces wasn't a hard thing to photograph and to film.
Well, you're talking about camels and the horses?
Yeah, so it's like two things that we're focused on, because it's basically animals in Giza. The horses pull carts around, taking tourists from one spot to another, and then the camels give rides, mainly for Instagram photos, I would say. Yeah, so it's two campaigns that we're trying to get the animals out. We had heard after our campaign started, the government announced they were going to remove the horses and put in electric carts. The pandemic hit, and they have since walked that back. They're not taking the horses out, and the electric carts are now only for VIPs, like officials and celebrities, which makes them useless. So we went back. We went back a couple months ago, and we just documented, because the first camel case, we filed a complaint, and cut to the chase. This new case, we have also filed a complaint. But the first one resulted in 3 people being charged with animal cruelty, which is extremely rare in the country. Mm-hmm. And so we have filed another complaint. Surprise, surprise, the inspectors went on an announced visit to the market. It's like, when you announce it, they don't beat them in front of you. Anyways, I think it was a bit of a setup, but we have our own footage, and it's not hard to go back and get new footage that when they're not looking.
Let's go back to the beginning. We're talking
Yep.
about Giza, an Egyptian
Yep.
city on the west bank of the Nile near Cairo, and
Yep.
the Giza Plateau, where it's the home of everything that if you've always wanted to go to Egypt, this is where you'd want to go. The 3 tall pyramids built as royal mausoleums around the 26th century BC, including the largest, the Great Pyramid, and the Great Sphinx. I mean, they're all there, right?
Yeah, they're right there. They're right there. You can get in you can sit at a hotel and see all of them from your hotel room. They're and the sort of the weird thing is the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid are only like a quarter of a mile between each other. I mean, it's simple to walk it. Simple to walk it. There is one area that's far off that you need some kind of transportation for. Most people are on tours and their tour bus goes. If you're not on a tour bus, then and you want to go to this far area, you either walk or there's only horses. When I went there to check it out the first time, I ran into people who said they refused to take the horse carts to it's like a viewing area. If you want like a panoramic shot from half a mile away, you take you take these carts out to the viewing area. So here we are with trying to pressure the government because there's been no change. Oh, let me just give you the news of the week. Mm-hmm. This week we have learned that they are putting in a vet station at the horse and at the animal entrance to the park, which could be good. The idea that someone is watching and that things are going to be better is great. Unfortunately, the person at the booth is not open most of the time. And the person at the booth said that the horses and camels are treated great and that really the vet station isn't needed. Mm. So it doesn't bring hope to me that someone is looking after them. But maybe, we take steps. We want things to be better. We want the animals to be out, but better is better than nothing.
Right now, if you were to go there, you would see the horses carrying the people around, and then you would see people, tourists, hiring camels to ride around. And what do you do as you take a camel ride?
Yeah, you basically, for the most part, you take a camel ride around the Great Pyramid. It's like a 5-minute walk around. Some of them go through the desert, but at the end of the time that these, they spend their entire days in the sun. Camels they don't want to be in the sun all day, and they get no water all day. And then when they're done, they are sent back to the same market that we documented where they're bought, and this time they're sent to the slaughterhouse. What we're trying to get is electric carts in there, and we're trying to change the image of what it is to be the camels. The camel, I understand, and we understand that the camels and the pyramids are an intertwined image. And so we have to change what that image means. We have to work on social media. We have to work with people who go there and mistakenly take camel rides and horse rides, and to change the image of what that's about, and to push the government. And so by showing the undercover investigations that we have, and if anyone hasn't seen it, they should go to PETA's website. It's on the front page. You'll also learn there that this past week, about a dozen travel agencies have started either stopped selling tickets for camel rides or have removed imagery of camel rides from their websites. And that's good. That's all about changing the image and changing the message.
The video is pretty striking when you see camels being dragged, I guess, after they've been deemed of no use. They get dragged off to the slaughterhouse. Exactly.
When some of them are dragged because they can't even walk, and they're dragged off to the slaughterhouse. So at the end of, I think what people don't understand is that at the end of the couple of years that these camels are giving rides, they're sent off back to the slaughterhouse. It's just the whole market is a horrific scene of scared animals. Even if you take away the physical beatings, you can see the trauma that is going on there. Some of them have their legs tied so that they can't walk. Like their legs are bent and there's a rope tied around it so that they're basically on their knees. It's shocking.
And so what happens to, tourists, they don't see this generally. Tourists, they just, pay whatever they do to ride a camel. It's a 5-minute ride. And they think I've just had an authentic experience. But it ends up being an authentic experience of cruelty.
And we're trying to show people all of this behind the scenes, that it's not about this 5 minutes where a camel is standing there, in a bored life where they're not getting anything that is natural to them. But the whole cruelty that is involved in it. And I think that we know that it shocks people. We know that people don't know it, and we see people taking down Instagram posts. We see people changing the message, and so we'll get there. It's happened with other industries. 20 years ago, whenever anyone went to Thailand, they rode elephants. Now, last time I was there were almost all the flyers regarding elephants talked about no elephant rides, and it's you can see the difference. So we'll get the same thing with Egypt at some point. I think one thing that the government doesn't realize is that we won't give up. We will keep pushing, and we will keep causing a fuss. And we'll try to we'll do everything. We'll try to talk to them. We'll do more investigations. We'll do protests. We just had a protest of a dozen people dressed as camels when I was in Manila this past week, and those protests are going to continue around the world. So the message will get out. It's only a matter of time before this all changes. And what we want, the public needs to write the embassy near them. They need to write any travel agencies that they deal with. That all has an impact. We don't just want it to be PETA complaining. That we're a group here, and we need everyone's voice.
Now, Jason, is this something that is widespread throughout Egypt at all the other spots that tourists might go, not just at the pyramids, but of course the pyramids would be the iconic place that you'd want an image of yourself on a camel. But I would suppose any place in Egypt that you find yourself as a tourist.
Yeah, Saqqara uses the same camel market. It's the same for Saqqara. And we work with a clinic there who treats injured camels and horses on a daily basis. And then Luxor doesn't really have that many camels. A few, some. They have a lot of horses, and the horses are in really bad shape. And we, as part of this campaign, have also pushed the government to clean up the horse carriages in Luxor. Yeah, one of the things I think with horses, similar to our effort in Petra, when you look under the saddle of the horses, so often they have saddle sores, which just means pain whenever they're riding, whenever they're giving rides or pulling carts. And it's just something you don't necessarily see. I think most people listening to this show, if they were there, would be shocked at the state of the horses in Luxor.
Jason, a lot of people, what struck me was when you said, just like the elephants in Thailand. I remember when I visited Thailand, that was one of the things. I did not get to the north where there were elephant rides. Not that I would have ridden one. This was, about 7 years ago. But people, always said, oh, too bad we're here in the south. We're not in the north, because that's where they have the elephant rides. But sometimes when people are thinking about things to do, that's an image. And I would imagine, I've never been to Egypt, but that's one of the things. But you're right. That's got to change. What do the officials say? What are they saying? Well, yeah, we're going to put electric carts. We're going to take the camels. How easy would it be for the government or the people there to make that change? Could it be easy if people get out of the habit of asking for it, if they just don't ask for it?
Yeah, it is a government thing. It is the government's lack of vision. It's the government's lack of effort. Part of it is they have a rather quick rotation of tourism ministers, but that's why we're there. We during the pandemic, because they had said they were transitioning to carts, we laid off of them for a while. We know not to make that mistake again. So we've been campaigning now for, I guess, 6 months heavily. We will continue to push on that, and we will continue to meet with officials and file complaints. And I do think they do respond. They do respond with letters that are rather formulaic and say things like, honest to God, we had one that said, we're looking to get water troughs in the park in the next year. Like, wait, just go buy them and put them up tomorrow. Like, why would it take that long to put some water troughs in? That just baffles my mind. Like, well, how do you say that with a straight face? So there is something. It's some response is better than no response, which we'll often have with corporations, and you don't know if things are moving along. It's just not enough, and it's not fast enough. I think we could be close to a turning point because I think the pressure is certainly building, and we know that the minister is hearing from a lot of places. The whole, just that they put a supposed, I mean, it's literally like a shack, a tiny shack, that they put this up and are calling it a vet clinic. It's a huge sign that we are having an impact because they are trying to justify the animals and the treatment and trying to show that things are not bad. And so they're feeling it. And we just have to keep that pressure up and keep that pressure up and let them know that we're not going away.
Jason, when is the peak season for the pyramids? We're coming into the summertime here in the U.S. Is this a time when people go to Egypt?
Yeah, just after the summer, really, when it's a little bit cooler. Not Christmas or not winter because it's a little too cool, but spring and autumn are the main times. So yeah, people will be going now. The tourism is so up and down these days that maybe summer is packed as well. I would suspect it's a little. I mean, it's probably packed, judging from how everything else is. I would expect spring, summer, and fall are all going to be packed this year.
Yeah, there's a real demand for travel in the post-pandemic. Tell me, what can people do besides going to our website and finding out more about this issue and taking some kind of action there? Should people boycott the pyramids?
We discuss that all the time because the reality is that we shouldn't be going there. But we also want to go there and show that you can do this without the animals. So I'm not against saying don't go there to people, and they need to tell the government that they're not going. But if you do go, you also have a voice because you talk to your tour operator and you make clear to your tour operator, because they listen to the tour operators. You make clear to the tour operator that they need to say something and do something about the animals. And then you go to your hotel. You should never, I always tell people when you travel, never leave a complaint or a feedback card unanswered. Got to give them something, but actually talk to the manager. We know of several hotels in Cairo who have written directly to the minister. Those have impacts because the hotels are saying that their business is being affected by the animals. When you go to restaurants, when you see people, these are all everything that's part of the tourism industry. When it gets back to the government, they listen. I think they listen more than PETA. I always am begging people if they're there to really speak up because we want more than one voice out there. There really is more than one voice. We get so many complaints about it. It's not just something that PETA has found and PETA complains about. We had, one of these volunteer lawyers that we had a couple months ago was there, and they documented a horse that collapsed and couldn't get up. We get footage all the time in from people who just stumbled upon downed animals in the park.
Tell me, Jason, about an image that you saw, and maybe from an investigation or one of the earlier investigations, that convinced you that this was an important thing to deal with for PETA Asia. What were the first things that you saw that said this has to be a priority and continues to be?
Well, there were two things that I saw that are actually we use them somewhat regularly. There was actually the first time that I went there, that I went to look and to document with part of another team, a horse collapsed right in front of me, and we used the footage in some of our videos. The horse was trying to get up this slope, collapsed, couldn't get up, and was just beaten and beaten. I think it was about 80 seconds straight of beatings trying to get this horse up. And 80 seconds of continual beating is a lot. And it happened. It was so obvious and so open and so accepted. The people on the horse cart got off and just waited until they pulled the horse back up, and then continued on their way. I later saw the horse outside the park. Had cuts on his backside. So that was the one where I was like, I had gone and I thought, well, I'm not going to see. I'm just going to see some camels sitting around. So I was like, okay, wow. I mean, and where I was, tourists don't go through there, so that's why you would have seen it. I wouldn't have seen it generally. And then it was the camel market. Within seconds of going into the camel market, you see blood. Seconds. We went with another person, a local who we work very closely with, and she's amazing. And we went in and we had this plan of going and how we were going to document and be calm and controlled. And 5-10 minutes into being there, she walks up to me and says, "I just bought a camel." And I was like, "Excuse me?" She's like, "I can't take it. I can't take this poor baby." And so she bought a camel, and then she has a sanctuary with other animals. So she just couldn't manage. So we continued, but it was that the blood and the beatings. The way the camel market is set up, the market is on one side and the trucks are on the other, and they've got to go across a road, and they just beat them all the way across the road every single time, or they drag them. And I'm always I say this to a lot of people about PETA investigations. I always go in thinking things are going to be totally fine, and I'm wrong every single time. It's always worse than I expect, whether it be a dairy industry or pet puppy mill, or I always think it's just going to be cleaner and nicer and people are going to care more. And so I was let down. So those were the two images. I still see the camel's bloody face. Yeah. And there's the psychological of it, the psychological part of it. I think people just, we can show videos of beatings and blood, but there's also a psychological part that these poor animals have to go through.
Jason, if it was stopped, what would happen to the animals if they weren't part of this trade, at the market, at the pyramids? Would they be able to live out their lives well?
For both the horses and the camels, we would want to reduce the breeding of them. That's always our goal. Is they're not going to be breeding horses for the market if they don't have them. And just simple economics, when there's less demand for horses, they don't have as many, and so we chip away. Getting them out of the park isn't the end all. There's still other areas that they're going to be used, and we will move to those areas as we do. There is a woman who runs a clinic and takes in injured animals and camels and horses and donkeys in Cairo, and it's just the park is just one aspect of it. Maybe it's the symbol of all of it. And once we can knock that one out, a lot of the other dominoes, I think, would fall a lot quicker.
Jason Baker, PETA Vice President of International Operations, on the campaign to end the cruelty to camels and horses in the Egyptian tourist trade. Take action. See the video at PETA.org. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA Podcast. Contact us at PETA.org. You can find me on Twitter at Emil Amok. That's EMILAMOK. Or see my vlog at AMOK.com. Or see my work at ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. That's ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. Or get this podcast on YouTube at Emil Amok 1. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music is provided by Carbon Works. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.